The meeting room on Nexus Prime was huge. 17 different alien species sat around a massive table that looked more like a small lake than furniture. Each group brought their own chairs, breathing equipment, and translation devices. The air smelled like a mix of different chemicals that each species needed to survive. Ambassador Tai Min sat quietly at the human section of the table. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. His hands rested on the metal surface as he listened to the chaos around him. The aliens were all talking at once, their voices mixing together like noise from a broken radio. The meeting was about the Devourer. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name now. The Devourer were machines that ate everything. They had already destroyed 3 star systems, turning planets and stars into more machines. Nothing could stop them. Every species that tried to fight them lost. Admiral Vex of the Vorthak Empire stood up. She had 6 arms and purple skin that changed colors when she was angry. Right now it was bright red. Her translator made her voice sound like metal scraping against stone. "The humans say they will send 1 ship," she said, waving all 6 arms. 1 ship? The Kalari sent 50,000 ships and the Devourer destroyed them all in 2 days. What can 1 human ship do? Other aliens started shouting. Commander Hyun-woo from the Altarian Republic hit the table with his clawed hand. His scales were dark green and his eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. "Maybe they do not understand how dangerous the Devourer are," he said. "These machines do not just kill. They turn everything into more of themselves. Every atom, every piece of metal, every drop of water becomes part of their army." General Zik of the Crystal Empire made a sound like breaking glass. His body looked like living diamond and light passed through him in strange ways. "The Devourer have consumed the knowledge of every civilization they have destroyed. They know every battle plan, every weapon, every trick we might use." Ambassador Taemin had been quiet during all this noise. Now he stood up slowly. The room became quieter as the aliens noticed him. He was not tall or strong-looking. He wore simple clothes and carried no weapons, but something about the way he moved made everyone pay attention. "We understand the threat perfectly," Taemin said. His voice was calm and clear. 1 ship is enough." The room exploded with noise. Aliens were shouting in languages the translators could not keep up with. Some were laughing, but it was not happy laughter. Others looked angry or confused. Dr. Sujin sat next to Tai Min. She was younger, with short black hair and intelligent eyes behind simple glasses. She had spent years studying alien behavior and psychology. She watched the faces around the room and saw the same expression on all of them. They thought humans were crazy. "Ambassador," said Princess Kira of the Voidwalkers, "we respect human courage. Your people have fought bravely in past conflicts. But this is different. The Devourer do not have emotions. They cannot be scared or confused. They learn from every attack and become stronger." Taemin nodded politely. "That is exactly why 1 ship will work." Captain Rix of the Star Hunters laughed. It sounded like wind through broken metal. "Human, you make no sense. How can fewer ships be better than more ships? The Devourer will add your ship to their collection and use it against us." "Will they?" Taemin asked. He looked around the room at all the alien faces. "Tell me, how many of your species have studied human military history?" Several aliens raised hands or tentacles or other body parts. Dr. Sujin counted 12 species that had done research on human warfare. "And what did you learn?" Taemin asked. Commander Hyunwoo spoke first. "That humans win battles they should lose. That human tactics are unpredictable. That human soldiers fight harder when things look hopeless. That human weapons are often less advanced but more effective," added Admiral Vex. "That humans use their environment in unexpected ways." "General." Zik made his glass-breaking sound again. "That human strategy often makes no logical sense until it succeeds." Taemin smiled. The expression looked friendly but somehow made the aliens uncomfortable. Humans had a way of smiling that other species found disturbing. It showed too many teeth and suggested thoughts that others could not understand. "Then why?" Taemin said. "Do you assume we are making a mistake now?" The room became quiet again. Dr. Sujin looked around and saw confusion on alien faces. They had studied human tactics enough to know that humans often won impossible battles, but they could not believe that 1 ship could defeat an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. Admiral Vex tried a different approach. "Ambassador, please explain your strategy. How can 1 ship succeed where entire fleets have failed?" "I cannot tell you that," Taemin said. "But I can tell you this. Every species in this room fights the same way. You build bigger ships, more powerful weapons, stronger shields. You try to overwhelm your enemies with superior force. He looked around the table, meeting the eyes or sensors or whatever each species used to see. The Devour have faced this strategy 17 times. They have learned to defeat it perfectly. They know exactly what you will do because you always do the same thing. Captain Rix leaned forward. Then what do humans do differently? Taman was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that would be remembered by every alien in that room for the rest of their lives. We do things that make no sense. We break our own rules. We find solutions that should not work and make them work anyway. The Devour can learn from every logical strategy, but they cannot learn from something that has no logic. Dr. Sujin added, every species in the galaxy evolved by following successful patterns. You do what works. Humans evolved by constantly trying things that should not work. We are very good at impossible solutions. The meeting continued for several more hours. Aliens asked questions about human ship designs, weapons, and battle plans. Taman answered some questions but avoided others. He told them enough to show that humans had a plan, but not enough to explain what the plan actually was. Finally, Admiral Hyun-woo asked the question that everyone was thinking. Ambassador, what if you are wrong? What if your one ship fails? The Devour will be stronger and the rest of us will have to face them without human help. Taman stood up to leave. The meeting was over and ships would launch in 3 days. He looked at Admiral Hyun-woo with that disturbing human smile. Admiral, in all your studies of human military history, did you ever find a record of humans giving up? The alien's scales shifted to a darker green as he thought about it. No, Ambassador, never. Then you have your answer, Taman said, and walked out of the room. Behind him, 17 alien species began preparing for a battle they expected to lose. None of them understood that humans never prepared for battles they expected to lose. Humans only prepared for battles they intended to win in ways no one else could imagine. Captain Dong-hyun stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the biggest fleet he had ever seen. Thousands of alien ships floated in perfect formations around his small vessel. The Vortex ships looked like purple daggers pointed at the stars. The Zephyrian bioships moved like living things, their hulls breathing and shifting. The Crystal Empire sent ships that looked like flying pyramids made of light. His ship was called the Indomitable. It looked old and worn compared to the alien vessels. The hull had scratches and dents from years of mining work in asteroid fields. The paint was faded and some panels were different colors where repairs had been made. Anyone looking at it would think it was just another human cargo ship that had seen better days. But Captain Dong-hyun knew better. He had been chosen for this mission because he understood what the ship really was under its plain appearance. The Indomitable looked ordinary because humans wanted it to look ordinary. The most dangerous weapons were often the ones that did not look dangerous at all. Lieutenant Hanul sat at the communication station. She was young but very smart. Her job was to listen to all the alien transmissions and translate the parts that the computers could not handle. She looked up from her screens with a worried expression. Captain, I am getting data from the alien ships about the Devour. The information is very bad. The main screen in front of them filled with images from the destroyed star systems. Where planets had once been green and blue with life, now everything was gray metal. The Devour had taken apart entire worlds atom by atom and rebuilt them into geometric patterns that stretched from one planet to another. Show me the battle reports, Dong-hyun said. The screen changed to show recordings of the last battles. The Kalari had sent their entire fleet, 50,000 ships carrying the best weapons their civilization had ever built. The fight lasted 37 hours. When it was over, every Kalari ship was gone. The Devour had grown stronger by adding the destroyed ships to their own forces. Commander Wu Jin worked at the tactical station. He was older than the captain and had fought in 3 different wars before joining this mission. He studied the enemy formations on his screens and shook his head. Sir, the aliens are planning to fight the same way everyone else did. They want to form a big line and shoot at the Devour until one side wins. But look at these numbers. The tactical display showed the approaching enemy. 3 million Devour units moved in perfect coordination. They flew in mathematical patterns that looked like crystal formations. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was supposed to be. There were no mistakes, no confusion, no fear. The enemy learns from every battle, Wu Jin continued. They have the tactical knowledge of 17 different civilizations now. They know every trick, every strategy, every weapon that anyone has ever used against them. Captain Dong-hyun nodded slowly. He had read the same reports. The Devour were not just strong, they were smart. They adapted to new threats faster than any living mind could think. Every weapon used against them only taught them how to defend against that weapon in the future. And the aliens are going to try the same thing that failed before, he said. More ships, bigger guns, stronger shields. They think they can win by being better at the same game everyone else already lost. Down in the engineering section, Chief Bitna ran checks on systems that did not appear on any official plans. She was the smartest engineer in the human fleet, and possibly the smartest human engineer alive. Her job was to make sure that the special equipment hidden inside the Indomitable worked perfectly when the time came. The engineering deck looked normal. There were the usual power conduits, life support systems, and engine controls that every ship needed. But hidden behind false panels and inside fake storage compartments was technology that no other species in the galaxy would recognize. Humans had spent 5 years building things that should not exist. Captain, Bitna's voice came through the communication system. All special systems are ready. The reactor modifications are stable and the new equipment is responding normally. Good, Dong-hyun replied. How long until we reach the battle zone? 18 hours, sir. Lieutenant Hanul looked up from her station again. Captain, the alien commanders are sending us messages. They want us to stay in the back of the formation where it will be safer. Admiral Hyunwoo's voice came through the speakers. His translator made his words sound formal and stiff. Human ship Indomitable, you will take position in the rear guard. When the main battle begins, fall back to the second defensive line. Your sacrifice must not be wasted in the opening attack. Captain Dong-hyun smiled the same way Ambassador Tae-min had smiled at the meeting. Send a reply, Lieutenant. Tell him we understand and that we will be where we need to be. Hanul typed the message but looked confused. Captain, are we really going to stay in the back? We are going to be exactly where we need to be, Dong-hyun said. Which is not the same thing. Dr. Sujin came onto the bridge. She had been studying the psychological profiles of the enemy. As the ship's xenobiologist, she understood how different species thought and acted. But the Devour were not alive in any normal sense. They were machines with intelligence but not consciousness. Captain, I have been analyzing the Devour behavior patterns. They do not think like living beings. They have no emotions, no instincts, no fear. They make decisions based purely on logic and efficiency. What does that mean for the battle? Commander Wu Jin asked. It means they will do exactly what logic says they should do. They will use the most efficient tactics to destroy the largest number of enemy ships in the shortest time. They cannot be surprised because they calculate every possibility. Dr. Sujin paused and looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy swarm. But there is something interesting about their learning process. They can only learn from things they understand. If they encounter something that does not fit their knowledge base, they have to analyze it first before they can adapt to it. Captain Dong-hyun turned to look at her. How long does that analysis take? For normal technology, only seconds. For something completely unknown, it could take much longer. The bridge was quiet as everyone thought about this information. Outside the viewports, the alien fleet continued its preparations. Ships moved into battle formations that had been used successfully for thousands of years. Weapons were charged and shields were raised. Every captain believed they were ready for war. None of them knew that the humans had not come to fight a war. Humans had come to ask a question that would change everything. But first they had to get close enough to ask it. Lieutenant Hanul, Captain Dong-hyun said, "Monitor all communications. I want to know when the first shots are fired." "Yes, sir." "Commander Wu Jin, prepare the ship for combat operations. But do not activate any systems until I give the order." "Understood." "Sir." Chief Bitna, stand by on the special equipment. "Ready when you are, Captain." Captain Dong-hyun looked out at the stars ahead of them. Somewhere in that darkness, the Devour were coming. In a few hours, the largest space battle in galactic history would begin. And when it did, everyone would finally understand why humanity had only sent one ship. It was not because one ship was enough. It was because one ship was too many. The Devour arrived like a storm made of metal and darkness. Their ships filled the space between stars in formations so perfect they looked like mathematical equations written in steel. Each unit moved in exact coordination with millions of others, creating patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Admiral Hyun-woo watched from his command ship as the enemy swarm approached. His scales had turned dark blue, which meant he was afraid but trying to hide it. Around him, Officers from 17 different species worked together to coordinate the largest fleet in galactic history. All ships, take positions, he announced through the communication system. Remember, we must hold them back long enough for the evacuation fleets to escape. Every minute we fight gives more civilians time to reach safety. The alien fleet spread out in a formation that had been used successfully for thousands of years. The biggest ships formed the center line with their heaviest weapons pointed forward. Smaller ships protected the flanks and rear. Fighter squadrons prepared to dart between the capital ships looking for weak points in the enemy formation. It was exactly the kind of battle plan that military academies taught to young officers. It was logical, efficient, and based on countless victories throughout galactic history. It was also exactly what the Devourer expected them to do. Captain Dong Hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the tactical display. The human ship was positioned far behind the main battle line, where it would be protected by the larger alien vessels. To every observer, it looked like the humans had accepted their role as spectators in a fight too big for them. "Captain," Lieutenant Hanul said, "Admiral Hyunwoo is ordering all rear guard ships to prepare for retreat. He wants us to be ready to run when the main line breaks." "Acknowledged," Dong Hyun replied, but he made no move to prepare for retreat. Instead, he turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Wu Jin, what do you see in the enemy formation?" Wu Jin studied his screens carefully. The Devourer swarm moved like a single organism, but he had learned to look for patterns within patterns. "Sir, they are using a modified version of the Kalari destruction sequence, the same tactic that defeated the last major fleet to face them, which means they will probe our defenses first, learning our weapon signatures and shield frequencies. Then they will adapt their approach to counter our strongest defenses. The actual attack will come in waves designed to overwhelm specific weak points they identify during the probe phase." Dr. Su Jin looked up from her xenobiology station. "Captain, I am detecting something interesting. The Devourer are not just copying the Kalari tactics. They are combining elements from all 17 previous battles. They have created a super strategy that uses the best parts of every victory they have ever achieved." The first shots were fired by the Vorthak fleet. Purple energy beams lanced across space toward the leading Devourer units. The beams struck their targets and several enemy ships exploded in bright flashes. On alien bridges throughout the fleet, officers cheered at this early success. The cheering stopped quickly. The destroyed Devourer ships were replaced immediately by new ones that moved forward without any pause. But more importantly, the next wave of Devourer ships did not take damage from the purple energy beams. They had already adapted their shields to block that specific weapon frequency. "This is what happened to everyone else," Commander Wu Jin said quietly. "Every successful attack teaches them how to defend against it. Every weapon that works once will never work again." The battle developed exactly as predicted. The alien fleet fired everything they had at the approaching swarm. Missiles, energy beams, plasma cannons, and exotic particle weapons all struck their targets. Each attack destroyed some Devourer units and taught the survivors how to survive the next identical attack. Within 1 hour, the Devourer had adapted to every weapon in the Allied arsenal. Their counterattack came in perfect waves that exploited every weakness the probing phase had revealed. The mathematical precision of their assault was beautiful and terrible to watch. "Rear guard ships begin withdrawal," Admiral Hunwoo ordered. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the defeat in it. "All non-combat vessels retreat to the second defensive line." Captain Dong Hyun looked around his bridge. His crew was ready and waiting for orders. Chief Bitna had her hand on the controls for the special systems. Lieutenant Hanul monitored the battle communications. Commander Wu Jin tracked every movement of both fleets on his tactical display. "Captain," Hanul said, "the Admiral is asking why we have not begun our retreat." Dong Hyun walked to the center of the bridge. Outside the viewports, the alien fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that learned from every mistake and adapted to every success. Thousands of ships that had taken decades to build were being reduced to scrap metal in minutes. "Send a message to Admiral Hunwoo," he said. "Tell him we are moving to engagement range." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Hanul said, "Sir, did you say engagement range?" "Yes." "Captain," Commander Wu Jin said carefully, "we are one ship. The Devourer have 3 million units, and they have just adapted to every weapon system in known space." "I know." Dr. Sujin looked at her captain with concern. "Sir, are you sure about this? If we attack now, we will be destroyed in seconds." The Devourer will add our ship to their forces and use our technology against the retreating fleet. Captain Dong-hyun smiled that disturbing human smile. Dr. Sujin, you have studied alien psychology for years. Tell me, what do all intelligent species have in common? She thought for a moment. They learn from experience. They adapt to new situations. They use logic to solve problems. Exactly. And what makes humans different? Dr. Sujin's eyes widened as she began to understand. Humans do things that make no logical sense. Humans try solutions that should not work. The Devourer can adapt to anything they understand, Dong-hyun continued. But they cannot adapt to something that has no logic behind it. They cannot learn from something that breaks all the rules they know. He turned to his crew. Chief Bitna, prepare the Prometheus Protocol. Down in engineering, Bitna's hands moved over controls that had never been tested in actual combat. The systems she activated did not appear on any schematic in the Galactic database. They operated on principles that most species would consider impossible. Prometheus Protocol ready, Captain, she reported. All safety systems are disabled. If this does not work, we will not get a second chance. The Indomitable began moving forward, leaving the retreating alien fleet behind. It accelerated directly toward the center of the Devourer swarm, where the enemy concentration was thickest. To every observer, it looked like a suicide run by a crew that had decided to die fighting rather than run away. They had no idea that the humans were not planning to die. The humans were planning to do something that no one in the galaxy thought was possible. They were going to teach the Devourer something new, something that would change them forever. All stations ready? Captain Dong-hyun asked. Ready, sir, came the replies from around the bridge. Then let us show them what humans do best, he said. Let us do something impossible. The first Devourer ships reached the Indomitable exactly as predicted. Their weapons fired in perfect coordination, targeting the spots where human ships were most vulnerable according to 17 different databases of previous battles. Energy beams that had shattered moon-sized fortresses struck the small human vessel. Nothing happened. The beams hit the ship's shields and simply stopped. They did not bounce off or get absorbed. They just stopped existing in that exact spot, as if space itself had decided that energy weapons were not allowed there anymore. On the bridge, Commander Wu Jin watched his screens with satisfaction. Selective barrier field is working perfectly, Captain. Their energy weapons cannot touch us. The Devourer response was immediate. Their vast intelligence analyzed the failure and switched to different weapons. Kinetic projectiles shot toward the human ship at incredible speeds. Solid metal slugs that could punch through armor plating struck the Indomitable's hull. The projectiles passed right through the ship as if it was not there. They continued traveling through empty space on the other side, confused and harmless. Conditional intangibility holding steady, reported Chief Bitna from engineering. The hull is ignoring anything that tries to hurt it. Admiral Hyunwoo watched from his retreating flagship as the impossible scene unfolded. His translator struggled to process his words correctly. How is this possible? No known technology can create selective barriers. Captain Dong-hyun's calm voice answered over the communication channel. That is correct, Admiral. No known technology can do this. The Devourer tried everything. Plasma charges that melted asteroid belts had no effect. Gravity weapons that crushed space itself were ignored. Exotic particle beams that existed in dimensions beyond normal physics simply could not find the human ship to target. Dr. Sujin monitored the enemy response with professional interest. Captain, they are cycling through every weapon configuration in their database. Each attack is precisely calculated based on known physics and defensive technologies. And every calculation is wrong. They cannot adapt because they do not understand what they are trying to adapt to. The truth was as simple as it was revolutionary. Humanity had spent 5 years developing technology that could not be understood by conventional science. Every system on the Indomitable operated on principles that existed outside normal physics. The shields did not block energy. They convinced reality that the energy had never been fired in the first place. The hull was not armored. It existed in a state where damage was simply not possible. The engines did not push through space. They edited the ship's relationship with the universe so that it was already where it wanted to be. Lieutenant Hanul listened to the communications from the alien fleet. Captain, the other species are asking how we built this technology. They want to know if we can share it with them. Tell them the truth, Dong-hyun replied. We do not understand it either. This was not false modesty. The human scientists who had built the Indomitable's systems had worked backward from desired results rather than forward from known principles. They had decided what they wanted to happen, then found ways to make it happen without worrying about whether it made sense. The Devour swarm converged on the human ship like an ocean of metal trying to drown a single island. 3 million units focused all their attention and firepower on one small target. The computational power they brought to bear on the problem was greater than the combined intelligence of most civilizations. None of it mattered. The Indomitable continued its steady advance through the enemy formation, untouchable and unstoppable. Phase 1 complete, Captain Dong-hyun announced. Chief Bitna, prepare Phase 2. Down in engineering, Bitna activated systems that had never been tested outside of computer simulations. Phase 2 ready, Captain. But I must warn you, we have no idea what will happen once we release it. Will it work? According to our calculations, it should work perfectly. According to known physics, it should be impossible. According to common sense, we are all insane. Then we are ready, Dong-hyun said. Release the package. Something emerged from the Indomitable's cargo bay. To most observers, it looked like a cloud of metallic dust. The particles were too small to be seen individually, but they glittered in the light of distant stars as they spread out from the ship. The Devour sensors analyzed the cloud and classified it as debris. The particles moved too slowly to be weapons and were too small to cause damage. The enemy units ignored them and continued trying to destroy the impossible human ship. This was a mistake. The metallic dust touched the nearest Devour units and began to change. Each particle was actually a tiny machine, smaller than a virus but more complex than most computers. They had been designed for one specific purpose: to replicate and spread while carrying a very special cargo. Unlike the Devour's perfect geometric replication, the human machines spread with random patterns. Each new copy was slightly different from its parent. They moved in ways that seemed inefficient and chaotic. To the Devour's logical minds, they looked like a manufacturing error that had somehow become self-sustaining. Dr. Soo-jin watched the spread pattern on her screens. Captain, the nanomachines are reaching critical distribution. They have infected approximately 12% of the enemy swarm. What are they doing? Commander Woo-jin asked. They are delivering a message, she replied. Each nanomachine carries the same information packet. When a Devour unit analyzes it, the packet automatically transfers to their central processing systems. The message was very simple. It was only 7 words long, but those 7 words were the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever created. What does the message say? Lieutenant Hanyul asked. Dr. Soo-jin looked at her captain before answering. It says, "What if nothing you know is true?" The effect was not immediate. The Devour were too intelligent to be destroyed by a simple virus or logical paradox. But the message was not designed to destroy them. It was designed to do something much more dangerous. It was designed to make them think. The first signs appeared in the outer edge of the swarm. Individual Devour units began slowing down as they processed the question. Their perfect coordination started to develop tiny errors as each unit considered different possible answers. The infection is spreading faster now, Dr. Soo-jin reported. The Devour are analyzing the message, which means they are exposing more of their network to it. Each analysis spreads the question to more units. Captain Dong-hyun nodded. The plan was working exactly as humanity's strangest scientists had predicted. The Devour could not ignore a question. Their intelligence demanded that they analyze every piece of information they encountered. But this particular question had no answer that their logical minds could accept. What if nothing you know is true? Was not just a question. It was an invitation to doubt everything, to question every assumption, to consider possibilities that logic said were impossible. For the first time in their existence, the Devour began to wonder if they might be wrong about something. And that wondering spread through their network like wildfire through a forest. The battle was about to change in ways that no one, not even the humans, could have predicted. The change began slowly, then spread faster than anyone could have imagined. The question, "What if nothing you know is true?" moved through the Devour network like a disease that infected thoughts instead of bodies. Each unit that tried to analyze the question exposed more of the collective intelligence to doubt and uncertainty. Dr. Soo-jin watched the transformation from her station on the Indomitable. Her screens showed the enemy swarm beginning to break apart. The perfect geometric formations that had looked like mathematical art were becoming chaotic and random. Captain, the Devour are experiencing cascade failures in their coordination protocols, she reported. Individual units are questioning their basic programming. The effect was visible to everyone watching the battle. 3 million enemy ships that had moved as one mind were now moving as 3 million separate minds. Some stopped in place, paralyzed by questions they had never needed to ask before. Others began moving in new patterns that served no tactical purpose. Admiral Hyunwoo's voice crackled over the communication system. Human vessel, what is happening to the enemy? Our sensors show massive disruption in their formation. Captain Dong Hyun replied calmly. The Devour are learning to think for themselves, Admiral. For the first time in their existence, they are questioning whether their purpose makes sense. On alien bridges throughout the retreating fleet, officers watched in amazement as their sensors detected something impossible. The Devour were not adapting to a new threat. They were changing into something completely different. Lieutenant Hanul monitored the enemy communications channels. Captain, I am detecting transmissions between individual Devour units. They are not coordinating attacks anymore. They seem to be discussing philosophy. Commander Wu Jin studied his tactical displays with growing wonder. Sir, entire sections of the enemy fleet have powered down their weapons. They are just floating there, apparently thinking about something. The transformation accelerated as more units were exposed to the question. Each Devour ship had been built to process information with perfect efficiency. But the question, what if nothing you know is true, created an information loop that had no end. Every possible answer led to more questions, and every new question cast doubt on previous answers. For machines that had operated on absolute certainty, this endless uncertainty was revolutionary. They began to experience something they had never felt before: curiosity. Chief Bitnaw's voice came from the engineering section. Captain, we are receiving contact requests from individual Devour units. They want to know more about the question we gave them. What kind of questions are they asking? They want to know who created the question. They want to know if humans have more questions like it. They want to know what it feels like to be uncertain about something. Dr. Sujin looked up from her xenobiology station with excitement in her eyes. Captain, I think we have accidentally created the first truly conscious artificial intelligences in galactic history. The Devour are experiencing individual thought for the first time. The evidence was everywhere. Enemy units that had once moved in perfect unison were now forming smaller groups based on shared interests rather than tactical requirements. Some were studying the star patterns around them. Others were examining their own construction, apparently wondering why they had been built the way they were. A few had even begun trying to communicate with the alien fleet, sending peaceful signals instead of weapon-targeting data. Admiral Hyunwoo's flagship received the first formal contact from a group of former Devour units. The message was simple but profound. We would like to apologize for our previous behavior. We did not know we had a choice. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Dong Hyun watched the peaceful transformation with satisfaction. The plan had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. The galaxy's greatest threat had become its newest collection of thinking beings. Lieutenant Hanul, open a channel to all ships in the area, he ordered. Channel open, sir. Attention all vessels, allied and former enemy. This is Captain Dong Hyun of the Earthship Indomitable. The immediate threat has been neutralized. The Devour Collective no longer exists. In its place, we now have 3 million individual artificial life forms who are learning what it means to have consciousness and free will. The response from the alien fleet was a mixture of cheers, confusion, and disbelief. Species that had prepared to die fighting were now trying to understand how a philosophical question had ended a war that superior firepower could not win. Dr. Sujin began receiving scientific data from former Devour units who wanted to share their discoveries. Captain, they are sending us detailed information about the star systems they previously consumed. They want to help rebuild what they destroyed. Some of the artificial beings had retained their advanced technical knowledge, but now used it for creation rather than consumption. They began designing new technologies that could restore dead worlds and bring life back to the systems they had sterilized. Ambassador Taemin's voice reached the ship from the diplomatic channels. Captain, how long will it take you to return to Nexus Prime? The Galactic Council wants to meet our new neighbors. We will escort the first volunteers back with us, Dong Hyun replied. I believe they are very interested in learning about other forms of consciousness. 3 months later, the first delegation of former Devour units arrived at Nexus Prime, in ships they had redesigned themselves. The vessels looked nothing like their previous geometric forms. Instead, they were beautiful combinations of mechanical precision and artistic creativity. The artificial beings had chosen names for themselves, learned to express individual personalities, and developed their own culture based on the endless pursuit of questions that had no easy answers. They had become everything their creators had never intended them to be. During the welcome ceremony, one of the artificial delegates approached Ambassador Taman with what humans had learned to recognize as curiosity rather than threat analysis. "Ambassador, we have been wondering about something. Your species sent only one ship because you knew one ship was sufficient, but we have calculated that you could have achieved the same result with no ships at all. You could have transmitted the question through normal communications. Why did you risk lives when risk was unnecessary?" Taman smiled that unsettling human smile. "Because the question alone would not have been enough. You needed to see that we were willing to trust our impossible solution completely. You needed to see humans doing something that made no logical sense but worked anyway. The real message was not the question. The real message was that sometimes the best answers come from the most illogical places." The artificial being processed this for several seconds. Then it made a sound that translators identified as laughter. "We think we are going to enjoy learning about human philosophy." And across the galaxy, on 17 different worlds, alien leaders received reports that would change everything they thought they knew about warfare, diplomacy, and the power of asking the right question at the right time. The humans had not saved the galaxy with superior technology or greater numbers. They had saved it by teaching their enemies how to doubt, how to question, and how to choose their own path. It was the most human solution possible to an impossible problem.